waters where this conflict began 73 days ago, where the blockade is enforced daily, where fast attack boats have been sunk and tankers disabled, and carrier-based aircraft have been flying continuous missions since February 28th. At some point during that sortie, the pilot reached into the cockpit, found the transponder panel, and manually typed a 4-digit code, 7700. The aircraft appeared briefly on civilian flight tracking systems, squawking that code, then turned hard toward UAE airspace, and the transponder went completely dark. By the morning of May 11th, Iranian state media had built an entire information operation around those 4 digits. The Iranian Consulate General in India posted the declaration. We shot it down. Project Freedom is collapsing. America is hiding its losses. The propaganda machine was running at full capacity before the aircraft had finished its approach to Al Dhafra Air Base. There is a single operational fact that dismantles the entire Iranian narrative, and it is the specific fact that the Iranian propaganda machine is either unaware of or is counting on its domestic audience not to know. You do not squawk 7700 when you take battle damage in an active combat environment. You have to manually type that code into the transponder panel. It is not an automatic emergency response. It is not triggered by weapons impact or systems failure or aerodynamic damage or any external event that happens to the aircraft. It is a deliberate, conscious, intentional act that the pilot performs because he has decided he needs the specific benefit that squawking 7700 provides. The immediate notification of every radar facility and air traffic control station in range that his aircraft has a problem and needs priority landing access without friction, without holds, without standard separation procedures. A pilot who has genuinely taken battle damage from Iranian weapons in contested airspace above the Gulf of Oman does not manually type a 4-digit code into the transponder panel to broadcast his position, his altitude, his emergency status, and his general location to every receiver in range, including every Iranian military facility that monitors the Gulf's airspace. He does not stand up on a digital platform and announce that his aircraft has a problem to the adversary that just created the problem. He exits the threat environment at maximum available speed. He communicates the situation to his flight lead and his base through the encrypted, secure, frequency-hopped communications architecture that military aviation uses specifically because operational communications in a combat zone need to remain invisible to adversary collection systems. He manages the emergency through the classified procedures that exist precisely for this scenario. He does not light himself up on Flight Radar 24. The 7700 squawk is the specific signature of a pilot managing a maintenance emergency through the normal civil-military aviation coordination system, declaring the emergency, getting priority handling from UAE air traffic control, clearing the path to Al Dhafra without the standard separation procedures that would slow his landing. The transponder going dark when the aircraft entered UAE airspace is the standard operational security procedure for military aircraft approaching an active operational base during combat operations. You switch off the transponder so civilian tracking systems cannot read your approach heading, your altitude profile, and your destination as you descend toward the base whose location, runway orientation, and surrounding airspace characteristics you do not want aggregated into an adversary's situational awareness picture. The Iranian Consulate General declared victory over a maintenance fault. The Consulate General is still waiting for the phone call from an Iranian radar facility confirming that their weapon system produced what the propaganda machine is claiming. That call will not come because the pilot typed those numbers himself. Stay with me. Because what the F-35 was actually doing over the Gulf of Oman before the maintenance fault interrupted the mission is the operationally important question, and the answer tells you far more about where this conflict is heading than any propaganda claim about a shootdown tells you about Iranian capability. The F-35A carries a sensor capability constellation that the Iranian coastal defense architecture was simply not designed to operate against. The AN/APG-81 active electronically scanned array radar is the most capable multi-mode tactical sensor system ever installed in a fighter aircraft. Its synthetic aperture radar mode produces ground imaging at resolutions that identify individual vehicle-sized objects under camouflage netting from ranges that keep the aircraft well beyond the engagement envelope of every coastal missile system remaining on the Iranian coast. Its air-to-surface ranging provides the geometric precision that makes the collected position data directly usable as targeting coordinates for strike packages. Its maritime surface search mode tracks small surface contacts in the specific clutter environment of the Gulf of Oman, the shallow water, the thermal variation, the radar returns from wave action, with discrimination algorithms that the previous generation of maritime patrol radar could not match. The AN/AAQ-40 electro-optical targeting system mounted externally provides a forward-looking infrared capability whose detection range for thermal signatures, engine heat, recently operated mechanical systems, the residual heat patterns of covered boat storage facilities, allows the aircraft to identify targets that have been deliberately concealed from overhead optical collection. A fast attack boat that was operated within the past several hours retains measurable engine heat, even after the engine is shut down and the boat is moved under camouflaged netting or into a covered shelter. The EOTS detects that thermal signature. The targeting system records the coordinates. The collection database grows. The AN/ASQ-239 electronic warfare system passively monitors the electromagnetic environment without emitting any detectable signal. It catalogs every radar emission, every radio frequency transmission, every electronic signal across the broad frequency range it covers. In the context of the Iranian coastal fast attack boat operation, this means recording every communication between coastal IRGC commanders and their boat crew stations, every radar activation at coastal surveillance positions, every electronic signal associated with the command and control infrastructure that makes a coordinated swarm operable, rather than a collection of individual uncoordinated hulls. You cannot coordinate 130 speedboats in two formations without command and control communications. Those communications are electromagnetic signals. Electromagnetic signals are what the AN/ASQ-239 passively collects without the Iranian system ever knowing the collection is occurring. The distributed aperture system, 6 infrared cameras stitched around the airframe, feeding the pilot's helmet display a spherical situational awareness picture, provides the 360-degree threat awareness that allows the F-35 to operate in the ISR collection mode without dedicating the pilot's attention to threat scanning at the expense of sensor management. The pilot can monitor the collection operation, manage the sensor modes, and maintain situational awareness simultaneously in a way that earlier generation aircraft architectures, which required the pilot to physically maneuver the aircraft to point sensors at specific directions, could not achieve. The mission this specific F-35 was executing, before the maintenance fault interrupted it, was ISR collection against the Iranian coastal fast attack boat infrastructure, finding where the IRGC is hiding its boats, finding where they are fueled, finding where they are maintained, finding where the command nodes that coordinate them are located, finding where the coastal missile systems that protect the boat staging areas are positioned, finding, in the most operationally complete sense of the word, the complete physical map of the maritime threat infrastructure that the resumed strike campaign needs to address comprehensively rather than reactively. The operational logic behind this mission is the specific insight that separates the whack-a-mole approach to the fast attack boat problem from the comprehensive solution. The whack-a-mole approach is what this conflict has been producing in its naval engagement dimension. Boats appear in the water, American forces destroy them, more boats appear from the coves and shelters and covered storage facilities along the Iranian coast. 7 fast attack boats sunk on Project Freedom's Day 1, additional engagements on subsequent days. But the IRGC's total fast attack inventory, which began this conflict at approximately 1,000 hulls across 31 coves along 120 kilometers of coastline, cannot be reduced to 0 through individual open water engagements alone. The boats that are not in the water when the engagement happens are not in the engagement. They are in their shelters, being maintained and fueled and crewed for the next sortie. The comprehensive solution addresses the boats where they live rather than where they deploy. Find every cove, find every covered storage facility, find every fuel depot, find every maintenance facility, find every command and control node that makes the swarm operationally coherent, and then strike all of them simultaneously, with B-52s and B-1Bs delivering large area ordnance against the coastal storage complex, with F-15Es carrying GBU-72 advanced penetrating weapons against hardened underground storage facilities, with A-10 Warthogs engaging exposed boats and open coves, with the GA-8 Avenger, with naval aviation providing the precision engagement at coastal facilities that the carrier strike groups can sustain continuously. You do not fight the swarm in the water. You address the swarm's logistics layer, the fuel, the maintenance, the shelter, the crew staging, the command and control, before the swarm has the operational opportunity to deploy. The F-35 over the Gulf of Oman was completing 1 sortie's worth of collection toward that comprehensive targeting package. The maintenance fault that produced the 7700 Squawk interrupted the mission. The next F-35 that launches from Al Dhafra picks up where the interrupted mission left off. And when the targeting package is complete, when every cove and warehouse and underground shelter and command node on that 120-kilometer coastline has been mapped with the precision that the F-35's sensor suite provides, the comprehensive strike that 130 speedboats in 2 formations cannot survive at the logistics layer is authorized and executed. The Iranian propaganda machine declaring a shootdown was giving a combat victory speech over a targeting intelligence collection sortie. The boats in their shelters are going to discover what that sortie was actually building when the ordnance that the collected coordinates enable starts arriving at those coordinates. Now, let us address the Strait of Hormuz sovereignty demand with the full analytical depth it deserves. Because this specific demand, Iran wanting all 21 miles, is not just diplomatically unacceptable, It is the institutionally revealing document of what the IRGC's actual strategic objective has been throughout this entire conflict, and understanding it explains why the ceasefire collapse was inevitable from the moment Iran submitted this counterproposal. The Strait of Hormuz is the most important maritime choke point on Earth for global energy supply. Through this 21-mile-wide navigable passage, transits approximately 20 to 30% of the world's seaborne oil, a substantial share of global liquefied natural gas, and the commercial cargo traffic that the economies of every Gulf state, most of Europe, and significant portions of Asia depend on. The geographic reality that Iran's northern coastline and Oman's southern coastline bracket this passage has given Iran a structural position of extraordinary leverage that predates the Islamic Republic and would exist regardless of Iranian government composition. International maritime law has a specific and well-developed framework for exactly this geographic situation. The UN Convention on the Law of the Sea, which every major maritime nation in the world has ratified or treats as customary international law, establishes the right of transit passage through international straits. This right is not conditional on the bordering state's approval. It does not require payment of fees or tolls to the bordering state. It does not require vessels to obtain permission from the bordering state before transiting. It is the legally codified recognition that international straits connecting areas of high seas are international waterways, whose freedom of navigation cannot be subject to the unilateral authority of any single bordering nation. The specific reason this principle exists in international law is precisely to prevent the arrangement that Iran's counterproposal demands. Iran's demand for full sovereignty over all 21 miles, the complete navigable width of the strait from its own coastline to Oman's opposite shore, is the demand for the legal authority to be the toll operator of the world's most important energy transit corridor. Every vessel that wants to move oil from the Persian Gulf to global markets would require Iranian permission to do so. Every country whose energy security depends on Gulf oil would be permanently subject to Iranian political conditions as the price of access to the fuel their economies need. Every government that Iran considers hostile, every policy that Iran opposes, every diplomatic position that Iran finds inconvenient, all of these could be enforced through the threat of transit denial that sovereign control of the strait would provide. This is not a negotiating position from which creative diplomatic drafting can find a compromise. This is the institutional expression of a strategic objective that is incompatible with the basic principles of international order that every major nation in the world has committed to upholding. The United States cannot accept it. China cannot accept it, because Chinese energy imports transit through the strait. Russia cannot accept it, because global energy markets in which a single state controls the world's most important transit point are markets that operate by fundamentally different rules than the ones that exist now. Japan cannot accept it. South Korea cannot accept it. India cannot accept it. Every economy in the world whose energy inputs travel through the Persian Gulf cannot accept it. The demand is not unreasonable because it goes too far in a negotiation. It is categorically incompatible with the structure of international order because it asks the world to accept a new and permanent arrangement in which a single revisionist state controls the valve on the world's energy supply. For 40 years, Iran has been pursuing this objective through asymmetric means rather than formal legal claims, through the threat of closure, through mining operations, through fast attack boat harassment, through coastal missile deployments, through proxy operations that extend the threat into multiple theaters simultaneously. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps' entire maritime strategy has been the institutionalized implementation of the extortion logic. Maintain a credible threat against the strait that cannot be permanently eliminated without accepting the political costs of full military conflict, and use that threat to extract diplomatic concessions, sanction relief, and regional political accommodation. The mafia does not need the deed to the building to collect rent. It just needs to be credible about what happens if you do not pay. Iran's counterproposal is asking for the deed, the formal legal recognition of what has been operating as an implicit threat for 4 decades, and the Trump administration said totally unacceptable. Because accepting it would mean that the implicit extortion arrangement becomes an explicit treaty right, that the world has formally agreed that Iran owns the strait, that Iranian permission is required for transit, and that every government that depends on Persian Gulf energy supply has accepted permanent Iranian veto over its energy access as the price of the agreement that ended this specific conflict. The enriched uranium dimension of the refusal adds the second wall that makes the counterproposal structurally impossible to accept on any terms that resolve the conflict's core driver. The International Atomic Energy Agency has confirmed that Iran is sitting on approximately 440 kilograms of highly enriched uranium, enriched to 60%. One short technical step from the 90% enrichment level that constitutes weapons-grade material. This is not a small quantity with only civilian applications. Civilian nuclear power plants operate on fuel enriched to between 3 and 5%. 60% enriched uranium has no civilian nuclear power application that justifies the enrichment program and the accumulated stockpile that Iran has built. 440 kilograms of 60% enriched uranium, further processed to weapons grade, represents the fissile material for multiple nuclear devices. The specific number of weapons that could theoretically be fabricated from this quantity depends on device design and efficiency. But the IAEA and every major nuclear nonproliferation analytical organization have made clear that this stockpile represents a weapons program concern of the highest order. Not a theoretical future risk, but a current material reality whose weaponization timeline is measured in weeks rather than years once the political decision to proceed is made. Iran's counterproposal refuses to negotiate this stockpile. Not reduce it, not transfer it, not convert it to a form from which weapons fabrication is more difficult, not subject it to enhanced IAEA monitoring, not address it in any way whatsoever. The 440 kilogram stay in Iran, under IRGC custody, at near weapons grade enrichment without constraint. This demand is asking the United States to lift the entire pressure campaign, blockade, sanctions, frozen assets, in exchange for an agreement that explicitly leaves the most dangerous element of the Iranian threat program intact and unconstrained. Trump's response? I've just read the response from Iran's so-called representatives. I don't like it. Totally unacceptable. Thank you for your attention to this matter. The so-called representatives is the specific language of dismissal directed at the institutional authority of the parties making the proposal. I don't like it is the president's unmediated assessment without diplomatic qualification. Totally unacceptable is the formal characterization that closes the diplomatic phase. Thank you for your attention. To this matter is the letter closing formula that signals a correspondence has ended rather than continued. The Truth Social post that followed is the longer and strategically more important communication, precisely because it frames the operational consequences of the totally unacceptable rejection in the historical and moral terms that justify what follows. 47 years of Iranian games, the specific accounting of cash transfers under previous administrations, hundreds of billions the $1, $7 billion in physical currency, the banks emptied, the suitcases and satchels, the Iranian officials who had never seen money at that scale and did not know what to do with it, the roadside bombs that killed American service members, the 42,000 protesters killed by a regime that received that funding. And the conclusion? They will be laughing no longer. Presidential Truth Social posts in this conflict have functioned as operational announcements in the specific register that precedes kinetic action. The bombing will start at a much higher level, and intensity was posted, and then the bombs fell on Bandar Abbas and Qeshm Island. We'll get it with whatever we want was posted about the uranium while the MV Ocean trader was positioning in the Indian Ocean. They will be laughing no longer is the declarative conclusion that ends the accounting of 47 years and opens the operational chapter that follows it. The analytical reading of this administration's communication pattern says that they will be laughing no longer is not a rhetorical flourish. It is an announcement. Iran's response, it doesn't matter at all, no one in Iran drafts plans to please Trump, is the institutional bravado of a regime that has constructed the information operation as its primary instrument while the kinetic operation has been running against every metric that matters. 551 ballistic missiles and 29 cruise missiles and more than 2,000 drones intercepted by UAE air defenses alone. 7 fast attack boats on the seafloor, 3 major tankers disabled and smoking in the Gulf of Oman satellite imagery. Bandar Abbas and Qeshm Island struck. The oil storage 40 days from overflow, the salary payments failing across the security apparatus, the IRGC commander-in-chief named on an Israeli targeting list submitted to Washington, the supreme leader reportedly incapacitated in a bunker, and it doesn't matter at all, no one in Iran drafts plans to please Trump is the official response. The institutional behavior of posting a taunt in response to a totally unacceptable rejection from the president who controls the largest conventional military force in human history, while the 40-day countdown is running and the 1 to 2 week Israeli strike plan is on Washington's desk, and the MV Ocean trader is in the Indian Ocean, and Space Force is watching the uranium at badge number precision. This is the behavior of an institution that has chosen performance over calculation. The performance requires demonstrating defiance to the domestic audience the information blackout has isolated from the actual operational record. The calculation would require acknowledging that totally unacceptable from this president produces the operational consequence that the MV Ocean trader's positioning, the F-35 ISR missions, the Israeli strike plan submission, and the "they will be laughing" no longer conclusion are collectively describing. The Israeli strike plan deserves specific analytical engagement because it defines the scope of the resumed bombing in ways that distinguish it from the previous phases of this conflict. 1 to 2 weeks of sustained strikes, with possible extension. The targeted assassination of IRGC Commander-in-Chief Ahmed Vahidi and other senior IRGC commanders. An urgent Netanyahu call regarding the plan's substance and timing. The coordination mechanism through which the American and Israeli operational architectures that executed Epic Fury together are being aligned for the resumed campaign. Vahidi's targeting represents the decapitation objective that compound strikes on facilities do not achieve. Infrastructure can be rebuilt. People cannot. The IRGC's command structure, already operating without the Supreme Leader's direct guidance due to Mojtaba Khamenei's incapacitation, already struggling with a command vacuum left by the naval commander's death in the early conflict phase, already managing the decentralized core autonomy model that produces operational incoherence at the strategic level, would face, with Vahidi's elimination, the specific absence of its coordinating institutional apex at the moment when the economic pressure of the 40-day storage countdown and the military pressure of the resumed bombing are simultaneously compressing every aspect of its operational capacity. Netanyahu's 60 minutes characterization of Mojtaba Khamenei in a bunker or secret location, alive but condition unknown, trying to preserve authority he doesn't have at the level his father had, is the operational intelligence disclosure that frames the Vahidi targeting in its full strategic context. And Iran, with a nominal supreme leader who is incapacitated and isolated, combined with an IRGC commander-in-chief eliminated in the first wave of the resumed strikes, combined with the oil storage overflow beginning to force permanent well closures, combined with the salary payment failures accumulating across every level of the security apparatus. This is the institutional configuration from which recovery is measured in years rather than months. The Artesh dimension is the internal pressure that runs in parallel with all of the above, and that the resumed bombing's operational environment benefits from most directly. The regular Iranian army soldiers who were sent to frontline positions with 10 bullets, who were used as cannon fodder and human shields by IRGC commanders who positioned their own units differently, who have been watching the IRGC's institutional position degrade under the combined pressure of military defeat and financial exhaustion, while their own institutional sacrifice was treated as expendable. Those soldiers and their officers are making loyalty calculations that the resumed bombing will pressure from every direction simultaneously. When Vahidi is eliminated and the oil wells begin shutting down and the salary payments stop entirely and the information blackout begins to crack under the weight of the material consequences that cannot be hidden from people experiencing them, the Artesh's loyalty calculation will be revised by the specific arithmetic of institutional survival under conditions that no longer make defending the IRGC's power structure the rational choice for an organization that was sent to die with 10 bullets. The Charles de Gaulle's positioning in the Red Sea, the $25 billion emergency arms package for Gulf partners, the Saudi and Kuwaiti base access restoration, the Bahraini arrests and citizenship revocations, the Qatari expulsion of Iranian military attachés. The coalition architecture is the external pressure that compounds everything above. Iran needed the international community to fracture around the American position. The international community has not fractured. It is aligned with increasing coherence against an Iranian military strategy that has been systematically converting neutrals into adversaries by striking ships with Chinese nationals aboard, seizing Chinese-owned vessels, hitting French-flagged commercial ships, attacking Gulf partner infrastructure, and now striking Erbil, the location of American forces and Kurdish partners, twice in 2 days. Every taunt produces a new addition to the coalition. Every multi-front attack hardens the alignment that the taunt was supposed to fracture. Things are going to heat up very hot before they cool back off. This is not an analytical projection that requires sophisticated modeling to reach. It is the direct operational reading of a conflict in which the diplomatic phase has concluded with a totally unacceptable rejection. The military positioning is at maximum readiness. The targeting packages are being completed by F-35 ISR missions over the Gulf of Oman. The Israeli strike plan with IRGC command targeting is on Washington's desk. The MV Ocean Trader is in the Indian Ocean. Space Force is watching Isfahan at badge number precision. The president has posted, "They will be laughing no longer," and the 40-day oil storage countdown is running. The heating up is the resumed bombing at the higher level and intensity than before that the president has been describing since the ceasefire was announced on April 8th. The cooling off, when it comes, is what follows the achieved objective. The enriched uranium no longer in Iranian possession, the Vahidi command structure eliminated, the fast attack boat fleet addressed at the logistics layer by the targeting package, the F-35 IESR missions have been building, the institutional cascade of command decapitation and financial exhaustion and military defeat, producing the specific outcome that force achieves when diplomacy fails to produce what the situation requires. The F-35 that squawked 7,700 was doing the job the conflict needs done before the resumed bombing can execute comprehensively. The maintenance fault interrupted one sortie's worth of collection. The next sortie is continuing. The Iranian consulate general who declared victory over a maintenance emergency and the state media that built the narrative architecture of a combat shootdown around 4 digits that a pilot typed himself are going to discover what the collection was building when the targeting package is complete and the bombs arrive at the coordinates the sensor suite mapped. The mafia boss who wanted all 21 miles and the entire nuclear stockpile and the return of 47 years of frozen assets in exchange for nothing is about to discover what totally unacceptable produces. And the Iranian officials who said it doesn't matter at all, no one in Iran drafts plans to please Trump, are going to find out exactly how much it matters when the plan that was designed to please no one, obligated to no one, and constrained only by what the operational capability can achieve is authorized and executed. They will be laughing no longer. The targeting package is being completed. The MV Ocean Trader is positioned. Space Force is watching. The Israeli plan is on the desk. The 40 days are running. And the boats in their shelters along 120 kilometers of Iranian coastline are about to find out what the F-35 that the Iranian consulate general declared shot down was actually building a map of while its sensors were running. Subscribe and turn on notifications because they will be laughing. No longer, conclusion is not rhetorical. Every prior Truth Social post in this conflict that described what comes next has been followed by what it described. This one is no different. Drop your prediction in the comments right now. Does the comprehensive fast attack boat targeting package complete within the next 72 hours and produce the logistics layer strike that addresses the 130 boat fleet before it can deploy again? Does the Israeli strike plan